Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of July 2025, and it's 10:24 a.m. And as you can see, it's another glorious morning. So I'm out with my birdie boys, Kermie and Bo, and they're very happy to be outside. Kermie even flew the length because he knew I was wanting to bring him outside, and I had him out on top of his cage. He flew the length from the studio to the living room, which isn't, it's a small house, it's not that far. But I freaked out because the door was open and I worried about him, landing or smashing down some of my very valuable crystal that's still left over from my mother. But he didn't. He was a good boy. He landed on the living room floor and just kind of looked at me, and I walked straight over and using my gloves picked him up, and he allowed that because he knew he was going outside. He loves being outside, and he loves being in his old cage that I now use as an outdoors cage. And as you can hear, he's very happily twittering to all the other birdies. So life's pretty good at Sacred Space, Titania's Realm, if I do say so myself. I've got to go grocery shopping later today, and I have a debrief with my worthy and wonderful psychiatrist, but that's quite late in the afternoon this today, which is unusual, but it's all good. We'll just have to beat the peak hour traffic coming home, so hopefully it won't be too bad. So anyway, yes, things to do, people to see. And we're going to be interrupted by the noise of the garbage truck. Always some interruption here at Sacred Space. Can't always have perfection. What can I say? But anyway, it's only once a week. Monday I said it's only once every few weeks when we were interrupted by the whippersnippers. Anyway, let us begin and forge ahead with today's mission. Chapter 3 of Part 2, I think we were up to. I'm not even sure. I've forgotten. Part 3. Chapter 3, Part 3. Right you go. Rightio. Marriage. There are many myths about marriage, but none describe the happy marriage so many people long for. It is perhaps ironic that the commonly quoted myth of a happy marriage never appears in mythology. Myth presents us with how things really are psychologically, rather than how we would like them to be. The images they offer about marriage describe the archetypal ebbs, flows, and conflicts of human emotions, and the difficulties and trials that are endemic to any effort at genuine relationship. The stories that follow offer us insight and wisdom into the dynamics of two people trying to relate to each other. But we will find no recipe for effortless, permanent bliss. In real life, a happy marriage is the product of human effort and consciousness, and perhaps a bit of good luck as well. But it is not a guaranteed part of the archetypal backdrop of the human psyche. Gerda and Frey. The importance of courtship. The Norse story of the god Frey's courtship of Gerda is testimony to the rewards of perseverance in love and the importance of courtship rituals in ensuring that a relationship blossoms into a happy marriage. While we may not have to resort to spells, we might nevertheless learn from the determination and passion with which Frey, or in truth his best friend Skirnir, who does all the real work, pursues the chosen bride, for an enduring and fulfilling bond is not likely to fall from heaven without effort and tenacity. My little tenacious rainbow lorikeet sweethearts are here. I think that's them. Yes, I can see them now. You coming down to sacred space, boys? Hey. Yes, Kermie, we got company of the rainbow lorikeet kind. My sweet little baby, my darlings, my angels, my sweethearts. Let me just move us a bit further back. There, that's better. Feel less constricted now. What you doing, boys? We're watching over you, Mama T. Frey's wife, like his mother, belonged to the race of giants. He was drawn to her by irresistible love. One day, while sitting on Odin's throne, they're gone now. The noisy boys have gone. One day, while sitting on Odin's throne, he amused himself by observing what was taking place on earth. In the kingdom of the giants, he saw a maiden of incomparable beauty coming from her father's house. The gleam of her white arms filled the sky and sea with light. Her name was Gerda. My mother had a friend named Gerda in Germany growing up. They went to a fortune teller together in some fair, some gypsy fortune teller who was a very accurate fortune teller, quite frankly. And they were about 15 or 16 years old. And they crossed her palm with silver, the traditional way. And so she sat them down and she read to them, and she told my mother, she said, "You will cross the 7 seas and live in the South Seas." "Don't be ridiculous," said my mother. "I want to emigrate to America one day." No, you're not going to emigrate to America. Although she did travel to America in 1979 with Case. They went on a cruise and drove right across America, and I stayed behind because I was 14, and the following year was my school certificate, and I was worried about having my education interfered with, which my mother had a habit of doing, sabotage. But anyway, this old gypsy fortune teller told my mother that she would cross the 7 seas and live in the South Seas, and that she would marry in a country far, far away on the other side of the world, and that she would have 2 children but many years apart, which was accurate as well. And my mother just thought it was all sort of poppycock and nonsense. And then the gypsy fortune teller woman told Gerda that she would never marry and never have children. And at 15, all Gerda dreamed of was being a wife and a mother. That was her goals for herself, her big dream. So she came out crying, saying to my mother, "It's not fair," because the gypsy had told my mother that she would have several marriages. She said, "It's not fair. How is it possible that you, who has no intention of getting married, will have several husbands, and I, who only ever wanted to get married, will have none?" My mother said, "It's all rubbish. It's all nonsense." She says, "I'm not going to get married." Anyway, it all came to pass. Gerda never married, and there wasn't a lot of options for husbands post-Nazi Germany, because so many men got killed in the war and so many came back. Of the few that came back were injured or permanently altered with, PTSD, or what they called in the old days, shell shock from the horrors of war. So there wasn't good options for German women. I suppose that was a phenomenon across the globe though, because the Anzacs had huge losses in both wars too. So it is what it is, people of Earth. But yes, my mother said, "Isn't it amazing how that woman could see that I would live in the South Seas, so far south that I live right next door to Antarctica?" And I just laughed. Some people have a real gift for vision. Anyway, there's a memory of Gerda, who never married and therefore never had children. Someone remembered you today, my darling. Frey's heart was at once inflamed with vehement love, but profound melancholy soon followed, for he did not know how to win his beloved. When his parents saw the change that had come over him, they sent for Frey's friend and servant, Skirnir, and asked him to discover the secret of their son's unhappiness. Got sunlight beating down on my ear's on fire, I'm getting a burnt ear. Probably should start wearing a hat now the sun's getting a warmth to it. Skirnir quickly elicited the source of the trouble and offered to ask for the young maiden's hand on his friend's behalf. Must have been something they did back in those days. It's not very manly, is it? Do your own asking, by the gods. Men, even in ancient times, are terrified of feminine mystique and sexuality. It's part of our charm, darlings. Also, marriage is a very big commitment. That's one thing you want to try to get right. One thing, by the gods. Anyway, so sending a boy to do a man's job, or a friend to do a man's, is a bit odd to my worldview, but I'm a modern woman and some of my worldviews got flipped sideways by decades of horror and trauma at the hands of abusers. So I've got strong, firm ideas about how things should be conducted and done properly and treated with high regard. Anyway, the poor mama tea. I'm still kind of a bit amused. It was just an innocent enough gesture, but when I arrived at the club on Friday and I was walking towards the table where I normally dance from, my friend Juddy from Ramjet, was setting up his equipment, and there was bridal tulle all over the table, and he sort of glanced at me because he knows I have a horror of ever getting married again. And if anyone puts some bridal veil on me, wants to put a veil on me, I literally go, oh, I'll freak out. That's how phobic I am of the thought of ever marrying again. And I don't know if that's why he did it or whether he was just annoyed that all the tulle was in the way of where he wants to put his equipment. More likely it was that. But it was just such a funny, harassed, quick gesture of quickly eliminating all the tulle and shoved it in the little alcove, and then he just looked at me and I just nodded, and then we both relaxed. Oh, I was like, yay, we got rid of the bridal evidence. Oh, blessed be to the bride though, may she have many years of happiness. Like, I don't have ill will to brides, don't get me wrong, I just would never put myself in that situation again. Anyway, it's just a little bit comical. I happen to know that my friend Juddy would love to get married to his beautiful partner. So, maybe that's why he was whimsically shoving it all aside too, because it might be a reminder of what he would like to achieve in life, and who knows. But anyway, it was in our way. It was all over the table and the wall along where all the equipment gets stored while they have the band playing. So Skirnir quickly elicited the source of the trouble and offered to ask for the young maiden's hand on his friend's behalf. He asked Frey to loan him a famous sword which moved through the air of its own accord, and a horse that could ride through fire. Whoa. Skirnir rode through the night until he reached the land of the giants. You a happy boy, my little Kermie? At the door of Gerda's father's house, ferocious dogs were chained, and the house was surrounded by the fiery flames of enchantment. It's a bit hot in the sun, isn't it, little Bo? Yes. Maybe the mama should put us in the shade a bit more. What do you say? Are you a happy birdie boy? Yes. Happy birdie boy. They were so unnaturally quiet this morning when I got in and pulled the, I have covers over their cages. I actually had my heart in my mouth. Look, please don't be dead. They were just so quietly sitting there. Very quiet. Sweet little darlings. But Skirnir was not frightened of the ferocious dogs and the flames of enchantment, you understand. He rode the horse through the magic flames and arrived at the door of the house. Our birdie babies are back. Yes, the pretty birdie boys. Gerda approached, attracted by the commotion the dogs made. Right. Skirnir gave her Frey's message of love and courtship. At the same time, he offered her 11 apples made of pure gold and a beautiful magic ring that had once belonged to Odin. But Gerda was not impressed. I bloody would have been impressed to be offered a ring from Odin. Odin, the All-Father. My goodness. Then Skirnir brandished the famous sword which moved through the air of its own accord and looked as though he would kill both Gerda and her father. The threat was in vain. Gerda remained unimpressed. Despairing of success, Skirnir then resorted to spells and conjurations. He told Gerda that he had a magic wand with terrifying power, and that he would carve threatening and deadly runes on it if she did not agree to the marriage with Frey. He insisted that, by means of these runes, he would ensure she lived a solitary existence, far from men, at the opposite end of the world, where in the icy depths she would dry up like a thistle. Bit like my mother ending up in the South Seas next to Antarctica in Aotearoa, New Zealand. But my mother was never far from men, or more to the point, men were never far from her, and she didn't exactly dry up like a thistle until she got old and, demented. But that happens to all of us at the appropriate time. Some dry up a bit earlier, but never mind, I'm joking about that. No, I'm not actually joking. Let's be real here, but I've dug myself into a hole that I'm going to have to now navigate out of. Right, continuing on with the story. Now Gerda became truly afraid. No threat could be greater than a life of loneliness. Someone's got that wand with those runes on over me, haven't they? Nasty bastards. But well, a life of loneliness is far preferable than being in a life with nothing but abuse, people of Earth. And Frey began to seem a very attractive alternative. As a sign of conciliation, she offered Skirnir the cup of welcome, filled with mead. Skirnir pressed her to make a rendezvous with friend Frey then and there, for Frey was consumed with impatience to claim his bride. This Gerda refused to do, but she promised to meet Frey after 9 nights had elapsed in a sacred grove, which she named. Frey meanwhile waited in agony for news. When Skirnir brought him Gerda's reply, his heart was again filled with joy. Yes, my love. Only the delay imposed by her caused him pain. A night is long, he said to Skirnir, but how much longer are 2 nights? How can I be patient for 3 nights? And how can I possibly survive 9? But he did indeed survive the 9 nights, although he drove both Skirnir and his parents nearly demented with his complaining. In the end, he married Gerda, and they enjoyed a blissful and fruitful union. Commentary. This Norse tale, unlike so many myths of courtship and marriage, has a happy ending, but the happy outcome is dependent on the courtship itself, which may seem to us a strange one. Gerda is only persuaded to marry Frey through fear, and there is only one thing she truly fears, which is loneliness. Only when Skirnir threatens her with a lonely future does she agree to the marriage. This tells us about one of the dominant forces behind our efforts to make binding relationships with other human beings. For loneliness is one of our greatest sources of fear and suffering. Perhaps the reason why the threat succeeds is that Gerda is honest with herself. We may not wish to admit that we want a partner because it is preferable to being alone. And we may not wish to face the fact that we are more likely to work at a marriage if we face the fear of growing older without one. We prefer to talk about meeting the right person or soulmate. Much is made in the present social climate of the joys of being single and freewheeling. There is profound truth in the importance of being able to exist as an independent entity for relationships based on fear alone, devoid of mutual respect and communication. Often do not survive. When there's no communication, even in friendships, it all ends, people of Earth. Honesty and respect and openness goes right across the board, includes business relationships as well, by the gods. Yet perhaps Gerda is more honest and therefore more successful in her marriage than many who pretend that the single state is preferable, largely because they are frightened of the challenges and compromises required of any close bond with another human being. Frey does not do his own courting. This too may seem strange to us, but Skirnir, the friend and servant, is really an aspect of Frey himself, as is the case in most myths where a double performs the hard work. Frey is a god, but Skirnir the servant is humble, without pretensions, and possessing no pride to lose. Although he wields magical implements, he is merely a spokesman. This suggests that if we are to succeed in establishing the relationships we seek, we may need to present ourselves not as important, lordly beings, but as ordinary people. Skirnir is also an image of communication. He has the right instruments, the right weapons, the right horse, and the right language. He tries several different approaches and then finally hits on the right one. This ability to be flexible, inventive, and communicative in creating bonds with others is an important insight offered by this myth. Moreover, Skirnir is persistent. He does not give up, even in the face of Gerda's stubborn resistance. His master Frey might have gone off in a sulk, hurt and rejected, but Skirnir's emotions are not involved, so he can be objective in his efforts. Thus, he is not only an image of good communication skills, but also of detachment. He has no pride to lose, no sensitive feelings to be hurt. We too may need to cultivate such detachment in order to find the right message for those we love and seek to get closer to. The magic weapon, golden apples and beautiful ring that are offered as bribes ultimately have no effect on Gerda. It is the conjuration of her fear of loneliness which succeeds. Skirnir only recognises this when his initial threats and bribes fail. Efforts to impress do not work in this strange courtship between God and giantess, and perhaps they do not work in human courtships either. I must admit though, I was rather impressed by the eight sprays of orchids my first boyfriend and later husband wooed me with. They were lovely orchids, very lovely. The first one was still kind of thriving by the time he gifted me the 8th one. His orchids last a long time in a vase. Oh, they were lovely. Well, like my love, it was a rare and exquisite thing that he very quickly trampled on, my darlings. It is a profound yet disturbing truth which the story of Frey and Gerda offers us. When we seek to impress with our powers and talents, we may fail in our efforts to win love. In the end, our capacity to recognize and speak to another's fears, which can only come through recognition of our own, may ultimately be the truest channel through which defences are breached and the beginnings of an enduring relationship established. Like a certain someone who wooed me with the promise of safety, that was quickly withdrawn in another deception. But anyway, more fool him. Mama T creates her own safety from within her own body, mind and spirit, and with the comfort and support and beneficence of the gods. Freya the Fair One, Arthur Rackham, 1867 to 1939. The goddess Freya provided the magic golden apples by which Frey, through his friend and messenger Skirnir, attempted to woo the beautiful giantess Gerda, but Gerda was not impressed. Let's have a proper look at. I was too quick. I've just noticed there's two beautiful cats at her feet. Can you see the pussycats? One there, a very skinny looking cat, and another there. All the golden apples. Just beautiful. Nineve's transformation. Compassion unlocks the power to love. We have already met Nineve in the story of Merlin's enchantment. In that earlier tale, she was young, callous, and self-seeking, and she architected the enchanter's downfall in order to gain power. In this story, she learns wisdom and compassion through time, experience, and suffering. And only through this transformation can she enter a true marriage in which she finds happiness and fulfillment. In the forest of adventure, Nineve journeyed restlessly. She had changed since that time when, as an impatient and ambitious girl, she had robbed Merlin of his secrets and his life. Then she had wanted power and eminence without understanding the price that life requires for such boons. But in the years since, her power had imprisoned her own heart as surely as she had once imprisoned Merlin's. Because of her magic, she could do things ordinary people could not, and rather than making her free, it made her a slave to the helpless. What you doing, little handsome boys? Her gift of healing made her the servant of the sick, and her power over fortune tied her to the unfortunate. And her knowledge of the secrets of other human beings, which exposed evil no matter what its mask, enlisted her in constant war against the ambitious plots of greed and treason that went on in the world around her. More than this, she sadly realized that, while her strength bound her to the weak and troubled, it did not bind them to her, for they could not offer friendship as payment of their debt. Thus, Nineve found herself alone and lonely, praised but desolate, and often she longed for the old times when love and kindliness were cast equally in a coffer by all. For there is no loneliness like that of one who can only give, and no anger like that of those who only receive and hate the weight of debt. She stayed little in one place, for gladness for her services invariably changed to uneasiness in the face of her power. Many shamans experience this too, by the way. Instead of gratitude and honour, it turns to rancid suspicion and fear and contempt. Ask me how I know. As she travelled through the forest, she passed a young squire, and she saw that he was weeping. When questioned, he revealed that his beloved master had been betrayed by his lady, and now his master's heart was broken, and he lay with arms open for death. "Take me to your Lord," Nineveh said. "He shall not die for love of an unworthy woman. If she is merciless in love, the proper punishment is to love and yet be unloved." So the squire escorted her to the bed of his master, Sir Peleus, who lay with hollow cheeks and fevered brow. Nineveh thought she had never seen so goodly and handsome a man. "Why does good throw itself under the feet of evil?" she said, and soothed his throbbing forehead with her cool hand. She sang to him, and her magic brought him peace and the enchantment of dreamless sleep. Then she sought out the treacherous lady who was called Itade, and brought her to the bed of the sleeping Peleus. "How do you dare bring death to such a man?" Nineveh demanded, for she could not forget what she had once done to Merlin, and lived constantly with her own bitter remorse. "What are you that you could not be kind? I offer you the pain you have inflicted on another. Already you feel my spell, and you are beginning to love this man. You love him more than anything in the world. You would die for him. So deeply do you love him." And Itade, caught in the spell, repeated, "I love him. Oh God, I love him. How can I love what earlier I so despised?" "It is a little parcel of the hell you will want to offer others," said Nineveh, "and now you will see the other side." Nineveh whispered long into the ear of the sleeping night, and then awakened him, stepping back to watch. When Peleus caught sight of Itade, he was filled with loathing for her, and when her loving hand moved towards him, he shrank away in disgust. "Go away," he cried. "I cannot stand the sight of you. You are treacherous and cold. Leave me and never let me see you again." And Itade sank to the ground, weeping. And Nineveh said, "Now you know the pain. This is what he felt for you." "I love him," Itade screamed. "You will always love him," Nineveh said, "and you will die with your love unwanted, and that is a dry, shriveling death. Go now to your dusty death." Then Nineveh returned to Peleus and said, "Arise up and begin to live again. One day you will find your true love, and she will find you." "I have worn out my capacity to love," said the knight sadly. "That is over." "Not so," said Nineveh. "Take my hand. I will help you find your love. Will you stay with me until I do?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I promise to stay beside you until you find your love." And they lived together happily for the rest of their lives. Commentary. The story of Nineve's transformation has many insights to offer us about the capacity to love and the potential for creating an enduring bond. Not least, it teaches us that we must live with the inner consequences of our actions, and that this profound justice, although not always visible in outer life, may change us from callous, self-centered creatures to individuals capable of understanding and compassion. It may be that while we are all born with the potential to love, we can only fulfill that potential through the suffering born of real self-knowledge. Nineve discovers first that power and position never come without a price, and the price is often isolation from our fellow humans. Whether our power is derived from wealth, knowledge, worldly status, special artistic or healing gifts, or unusual beauty, or sexual charisma, nevertheless, we must accept the burden of aloneness if we define ourselves by our specialness. And we cannot expect our service to others to earn us love either, for, as Nineve learns at her cost, obligation and love make poor bedfellows. Yes, my sweet boy. It's the rubbish man coming to take away the rubbish. You don't have to worry about that because you is a birdie. Little Bo. Sweet little Bobo. Nineve also discovers that regret for hurts inflicted on others cannot be shed simply through forgetting or through performing good deeds in expiation. When we injure our fellows through callousness or the urge for power, somewhere deep down we know what we have done, and we must live with this knowledge all our lives. Ordinary guilt is generally a useless mechanism because it is so often merely an intellectual recognition of our culpability, devoid of real feeling. But remorse, which is deeper, arises when we recognize with our whole hearts that we have caused pain unjustifiably. Remorse, deeply felt, can transform us. What Nineve has done to Merlin cannot be undone. And as she grows older and experiences loneliness, she carries this knowledge within her, and it humbles her. Nineve's desire to help Sir Pelleas arises not because she thinks she can get him for herself, but because she sees in what his Lady Ettarde has done to him a mirror of what she herself once did to Merlin. it's dreadfully unfair that Merlin was denied the opportunity of thriving and being brought back to life and finding his true love. Dreadfully unfair. She recognises that Peleus is a good man, and that a woman not unlike the young Nineveh has nearly destroyed him with her callousness and faithlessness. Nineveh's anger at Attarde is really an expression of her anger at herself, and it is herself whom she is really punishing. She sees all too clearly that the handsome knight deserves something better in life than the kind of woman she herself once was. And when he declares that he can no longer love, her compassion and pity for him make her vow to help him find another love, never realizing that she herself will be that love. Nineveh's actions on behalf of Peleus are entirely free of self-interest and are, therefore, unlike anything she has ever done before. Her urge to right the wrong Attarde has done springs from her remorse and her painful realization of the wrongness of displaying unkindness to those who genuinely love us. This is a profound change and a release of the poisons of the past, and her reward, which she never set out to claim, is an enduring love. Human beings have filled volumes attempting to understand the nature of lasting love and the secret of making a marriage work. This story may not answer all our questions on the matter, but it contains profoundly important messages about the mysterious relationship between love and self-knowledge, and about the link between humility and real compassion. The story of Nineveh also reveals the difference between doing good as a means of claiming power and assuaging loneliness, and offering service to others as the reflection of an empathy born of self-understanding. Before we continue with the next story, I want to show you the painting by Anthony Frederick Augustus Sandys, 1829 to 1904, Queen of Avalon, Morgan Le Fay. Although Nineveh had both magical powers and beauty, she was miserable because her gifts alienated her from her fellow humans and drove her into intolerable isolation. Here we are, Morgan Le Fay. I love the symbology on her skirt or overskirt. Interesting. It's got a dragon and the Midgard serpent. Interesting. Alcestis and Admetus, loving another more than oneself. The Greek tale of Alcestis' willingness to offer her own life to save the life of her husband has come down to us as a symbol of the noblest kind of self-sacrifice in marriage. Human beings often indulge in something which looks like self-sacrifice, but which is really a secret means of ensuring another person's loyalty. Self-sacrifice in marriage is often a kind of unconscious deal meant to purchase the partner's devotion. This myth gives us a picture of a love which puts the loved one first, not because of any secret hope or future reward, but because there is simply no other choice open to the heart. Hey, little Bo, what you doing, little snooks? Are you my sweet little baby? Yes, you are. You sweet little baby boy. I'm 45, Mum. It's one of my running jokes. Alcestis, the most beautiful of King Peleus' daughters, was asked in marriage by many kings and princes. Not wishing to endanger his position by refusing any of them, and yet clearly unable to satisfy more than one, Peleus let it be known that he would offer Alcestis to any man who could yoke a wild boar and a lion to his chariot and drive them around the racecourse. This news eventually reached the ears of King Admetus of Pherae. Admetus immediately summoned the sun god Apollo, whom Zeus, king of heaven, had bound to him for 1 year as a herdsman. Have I treated you with the respect due to your godhead? Admetus asked the sun god. You have indeed, Apollo replied, and I have shown my gratitude by making all your ewes drop twins. As a final favour, Admetus said, help me to win Alcestis by enabling me to fulfill Peleus' conditions. I shall be pleased to do so, answered Apollo, and presently Admetus was driving his chariot around the racecourse, drawn by the savage team of lion and boar. All might have been well, but at the wedding, Admetus, in his great joy, forgot to make the customary sacrifice to the moon goddess Artemis. Artemis was quick to punish him when, flushed with wine and garlanded with flowers, he entered the bridal chamber that night. He recoiled in horror. No lovely naked bride awaited him on the marriage bed, but a tangled knot of hissing serpents. Speaking of serpents, I think Sybil is coming back in springtime. I can actually sense her. I hope she chooses the same spot, because that way I can keep an eye on her and know where she is in the garden and not be surprised with a enormous carpet snake peeping out at me from all sorts of spots in the garden that I don't suspect. Anyway, I just have a sense she's coming back because she enjoyed living here for those 12 days while she shed her skin. She knew she was safe here at Sacred Space. It's beautiful, isn't it? It did freak me out for the first 4 or 5 days till I got used to her presence. My friend Lynn tells me that she's seen snakes out and about already, and it's like still winter. So now I'm sort of looking around the garden, wondering when I shall see the serpentine ones again. Admetus ran shouting for Apollo, who kindly intervened with Artemis on his friend's behalf. The neglected sacrifice was offered at once, and Apollo even obtained Artemis's promise that, when the day of Admetus's death came, he should be spared on condition that a member of his family died voluntarily for love of him. It's a rather cruel contract to have with a goddess. This fatal day came sooner than Admetus expected, although it had been appointed from the beginning by the fates. Hermes, the divine messenger, flew into the palace one morning and summoned Admetus to the underworld. General consternation prevailed, but Apollo gained a little time for Admetus by making the 3 fates drunk, and thus delayed the final cutting of Admetus's life thread. Wow. My fates have been drunk at least 15 times. We're up to the 16th time, but the 16th time was when I slashed open my arm instead of cracking my skull open. So it wasn't quite a near death, more a near miss. But my fates must be drinking on the job, and a lot, because they keep not killing me, people of Earth, in this incarnation. But don't worry, they'll get me in the end. They always do get their man or woman in the end, by the gods. Admetus ran in haste to his own parents, clasped their knees, and someone yelled out, "It's 'cause you wanted it too much." True, like my love life you withhold from me because I wanted it too much. Yes, they say. Yes, Tanya. Sometimes I pretend that I don't give a flying fuck and I don't care, and you should see the men come running then. It's odd, isn't it, human sexuality? If you look like you're really keen and interested and encourage too much, they head for the hills. And if you really don't give a flying fuck, 0 fucks, none at all, then they desire you with all-consuming, obsessive passions. Either way, neither works out, does it? You have to find the middle path, the middle road. Not too much, not too little, just right, like Goldilocks and her porridge. But no one wants stale cold porridge left over from yesterday's meal, fed to you over and over again with no real flavour and zest for life and no real love for you, people of Earth. Right, where were we? Try not to laugh. It was advice I gave a very dear friend of mine. She'd met up with an ex-lover, and she said, I fear he's going to, fuck me over again, as men often do. Not all men, but toxic men. And toxic women do that too. Let's be fair here. I looked at her and I said, it's all very lovely, but no one wants to sup from yesterday's cold, stale porridge. Find someone new to love. And so she did. She's married now. Good on her. To you, my beautiful Jojo. Where were we? I have to repeat that paragraph because I drifted. I'm drifting a lot lately, people of Earth. 'Tis what it is. Admetus ran in haste to his old parents, clasped their knees and begged each of them in turn to surrender their final days on his behalf. But both refused, saying that they still derived too much enjoyment from life and that he should be content with his appointed lot, like everyone else. Then, for love of Admetus, Alcestis took poison, and her ghost descended to the underworld, fulfilling the bargain between Apollo and Artemis to grant Admetus a longer life. But Persephone, goddess of the underworld, considered it an evil thing that no one but his loving wife would make such a sacrifice. As a fellow woman, she understood Alcestis's great love and decided to reward it. So she sent Alcestis back to the world of the living, and the husband and wife lived long in great happiness. So Alcestis had a near-death experience and was granted longer continuance, like the Mama T. I don't know what I did to deserve all those extra kick-starts. Literally kicked up the tuchus by the fates. Not sure what it was that they keep me here for. But here we are in this beautiful, blessed day with my beautiful birds. Still in love with the universe, you understand, and a few jolly good fellows. And my beautiful friends. Yes, life is indeed a many splendid thing and a gift from the gods. Commentary. On the surface, the message of this moving tale is clear enough. No greater love can a woman feel than that which impels her to sacrifice her own life on behalf of her loved ones. But there are other themes embedded in the myth which tells us something more about the nature of marriage, and perhaps even about the mystery of life itself. From the very beginning, this marriage is linked to divine figures who are responsible for much of the action in the story. Apollo is a great and powerful god, yet he acts as Admetus's servant and friend, providing the necessary assistance whenever it is required. Who is this God, and what might he symbolize in the story? As Lord of the Sun, he is an image of the light of the Spirit, and also the light of consciousness. Admetus is a man who is both conscious and spiritually alive, and thus he can meet the challenge which Alcestis's father presents to her suitors. Yoking a lion and a boar together as a chariot team is an image of controlling the instincts and directing raw power to civilized ends. In other words, Admetus has made the effort to contain his instinctual nature, and has made an enduring relationship with his inner spirit. He is, in short, on the side of life and of the light, and because of this, he is fortunate in choosing a bride. Admetus is forgiven his first transgression, which is his neglect of the moon goddess Artemis. Artemis is a deity connected with wild nature. She is a symbol of raw instinct, and therefore Admetus's self-control and consciousness make her angry. But Apollo sorts this problem out, and Admetus is offered a longer lifespan, provided there is someone who loves him sufficiently to take his place in the underworld. Apollo then deals with the problem of the fates by getting them drunk. A unique image in Greek myth, since even the gods had to obey fate. Perhaps this story is telling us that consciousness and spiritual commitment provide the possibility of freeing oneself from the kind of blind compulsions which the fates symbolize, and perhaps even death, at least on a psychological level, may be kept at bay for a time through such inner awareness. Admetus asks his aging parents if they will offer themselves to spare his life. Their response is quite the opposite of what we might expect. They categorically refuse. The love of parents for children and children for parents may sometimes be a rather precarious thing if we take the message of this mythic image seriously. What passes for love in families is often a bond rooted in mutual need, dependency, and fear of separateness, rather than a genuine love arising from mutual respect and emotional generosity. For this reason, we may often be let down by our families when we most need their validation of our individuality. Only Alcestis is prepared to sacrifice herself for Admetus. She values him enough to make this offering without question. While we may never have to make such a total sacrifice for a loved one, There are many occasions in every relationship when our affirmation of another's value may make us put that person first without thinking of the consequences to ourselves. This is a sacrifice based not on some hope of future return, nor motivated by any secret attempt to bind the other with obligation. It erupts spontaneously from a mysterious core of the heart and soul, which cannot do otherwise than give. Because of this act of total generosity, Persephone, queen of the underworld, refuses to countenance Alcestis's death and sends her back to the realm of the living. Persephone is an image of the mysterious, hidden dimensions of life, and amongst other things, symbolizes the cycles of nature and time, which are veiled from rational consciousness. She does not present the judgment of society. She reflects a deeper law of nature, which deals in psychological consequences. We may understand her to symbolize the laws by which the unconscious psyche itself operates. Alcestis is rewarded because she has never sought a reward. She achieves happiness because she does not try to claim it. She lives her life loving and loved because she has put love before her own gain. It would be unrealistic to expect any human being to live in such a state of total open-heartedness all the time. But we may glimpse the magic of Alcestis's reward when we step beyond our personal motives and agendas and value someone so much that we forget for a little while our own needs and wishes. However brief the episode, this is a profoundly healing experience which renews life. Without it, we cannot hope to achieve the essential core of what marriage is all about. Before we continue, I want to show you. Admetus's appointed end could only be forestalled if a member of his family died voluntarily for love of him. So his wife Alcestis took poison, and her ghost descended to the underworld in his place. Alcestis sacrifices herself to save her husband Admetus, king of Pherae. Jean-François Pierre Péron, 1744 to 1814. The next story is one of my favourite characters, written by Homer. Odysseus, also known as Ulysses. and Penelope, believing in each other against all odds. The marriage of Odysseus and Penelope is only a small part of the great saga of the Trojan War, but it is a remarkable mythic portrayal of the loyalty and faith that can exist in a marriage despite the trials and temptations which may beset both people. Odysseus and Penelope, rulers of the island kingdom of Ithaca, rejoiced at the birth of Telemachus, their only son. When Odysseus was called to fight in the Trojan War, he was reluctant to leave his loving young wife and baby for a war he foresaw would be long and arduous. So he feigned madness. Scrub Turkey's here, little boy. He's coming to see you. Thus, when the warlords Agamemnon and Palamedes arrived on the rocky island to ask Odysseus to join them, they found him busy sowing salt into fields he was ploughing with an ass and an ox yoked together. Wily Odysseus hoped this would persuade them he was too crazy to fight. But Palamedes was wily too, and, catching up the baby Telemachus, he placed the child in the path of the plough. Odysseus' quick reaction to save his son proved that he was not mad after all, and reluctantly he joined the fleet, sailing to Troy. The bloody Trojan War dragged on for 10 years. When at last Odysseus was able to return home, yet more obstacles lay ahead of him on the homeward journey. He inadvertently offended Poseidon, also known as Neptune. And the god of the ocean sent many storms to blow Odysseus' ship off course. Trials and tribulations befell him, and the charms of the sorceress Circe, the beautiful nymph Calypso, and the princess Nausicaa seduced him for a time. But foremost in his mind lay his wife and son, and though it took another 10 years, he finally made the journey home. Before we continue, I must show you these wonderful paintings. I think you've seen this one before in another story that I read out to you, but with another look. Many trials befell Odysseus as he tried to return home to his wife and son after the Trojan War, among which were the treacherous charms of the sirens whose sweet singing lured sailors to their deaths. Ulysses and the Sirens by Herbert James Draper, 1864 to 1920. And there they are, boarding ship quite brazenly, determined to lure him to his death. In the actual story, he wasn't just bound to the mast, but he was blindfolded and stopped his ears with wax so he could not hear their song. But in this painting, he's just averting his eyes, and his eyes are not blindfolded, which isn't strictly accurate. Oh, they're beautiful. Mamate's very fond of sirens and mermaids. The bloody Trojan War dragged on for 10 years. When at last Odysseus was able to return... Oh no, I've read that, sorry. Dear God. Wow. I was wanting to read the blurb for the painting and I got sidetracked. Despite the terrible hardships which both Penelope and Odysseus had to withstand. My goodness, little Kermie, you singing? Who are you singing to? The turkey? He's way over there. I wonder if there's a snake around, because Charlie used to do that when there was a snake around. What do you see that I can't see, little snooks? Or are you just a happy singing boy? Despite the terrible hardships which both Penelope and Odysseus had to withstand, their loyalty and love endured, and they were happily and triumphantly reunited after 20 years. Ulysses leaving Sparta with Penelope. Jean-Jacques François Le Barbier, 1738 to 1826. Oh, you're singing too now, little handsome beau. Oh, my handsome ones. Oh, my happy boys. Out in the garden. Right. Meanwhile, Penelope waited, hoping her beloved husband would find his way back to her and to Telemachus. In his absence, many suitors arrived on Ithaca, trying to persuade her to give up hope of Odysseus and marry one of them instead. They all coveted the island kingdom, and Penelope was still very beautiful. She had to find a way of repulsing the suitors, some say no less than 112. So she promised that once she had finished weaving a funeral shroud for her father-in-law, she would choose one of them. However, although she worked long and hard on her weaving by day, she secretly unpicked her day's work each night, thus never completing the task. Clever woman. Although it was hard to keep believing in the safe return of Odysseus after 20 years, Penelope managed to maintain her faith and loyalty and was rewarded by his eventual homecoming and their joyous reunion. Commentary. The myth of Odysseus and Penelope shows a relationship which endures time, temptation, and long separation. But this is only because both people keep their faith in each other, refusing to let go of their joint ideals. Both are sorely tested, and both, on occasion, make mistakes. In some versions of the myth, Penelope, as well as Odysseus, indulges in other loves, which is perhaps Understandable, given a separation of 20 years. Yet their love and care for each other and for their son binds them absolutely and sustains them both through the most difficult times. In Homer's great epic, The Odyssey, Odysseus pulls his thoughts back to Penelope and Telemachus whenever he is in danger of remaining with the various women who tempt him along the way. They succeed in seducing him, but they cannot truly touch his heart, for it is already given. The image of Penelope's weaving has caught the imagination of readers for over 2,000 years. It is a funeral shroud which she weaves by day and unpicks by night. What might this mean as an image of that which sustains her loyalty even when companionship is offered, which might ease her loneliness? The funeral shroud reflects the motif of death. The death of love, the letting go of the past, the ending of past ties and attachments. Although, when in full view, she goes on with her work, when alone she dismantles it, refusing to relinquish love, memory, and the woven past which she shares with her absent husband. I think my little butcher bird is here. I can't see him. I did see a fluttering. I can't see him, but I can feel him watching me. He's got a very big energy, that little bird, for someone so small. Weaving is also an archetypal image of life itself, a cloth of many different strands, experiences, feelings, and events. Each of us has our own unique story, which we begin weaving at birth and complete at death. Are you talking to the birdie that Mama can't see? You obviously can see him. Oh, it wasn't the butcher bird, it was the Indian myna. Oh well, there you go. I'm being bitten by ants. Ouch. Penelope refuses to accept that the woven cloth of her previous life is complete. She looks to neither past nor future. She lives here and now, loyal to her instincts and feelings, refusing to be bullied into giving up hope, yet equally refusing to fall prey to fruitless fantasies. She is, in effect, living wholly and utterly in the moment, and the pretense of the funeral shroud is only a means of protection against the importuning of the suitors. This ability to take each moment as it comes and remain loyal to one's heart regardless of what others insist is reality, may be the real key to the endurance of this mythic marriage. For Odysseus, the thought of his wife and son keeps him aligned with his deepest values and desires. For Penelope, the capacity to remain still and serene in the moment, refusing to say to herself, "Love is finished," is something we may have to work long and hard to find. The nature of love defies time, distance, and physical loss, and along with great art and moments of mystical vision, is perhaps the only thing we mortals can experience which can give us a glimpse of the eternal. If we can find it, even in brief moments in the framework of a close relationship, we may have discovered one of the great secrets of immortality. It is interesting too to speculate that it could be the space between these two mythical figures which makes their loyalty possible. Would the love between Odysseus and Penelope have survived daily mundane life on Ithaca for 20 years? Or did their ideals of each other, nourished by absence and longing, help to keep their romance alive? In The Prophet, which I have a video up here that I made for you. Oh, I love that story. It's so powerful and beautiful. In The Prophet, Khalil Gibran, I am being bitten by mosquitoes, damn it, 1883 to 1931, says on the subject of marriage, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and stand together yet not too near together. For the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow." And this picture belongs to the next story, so I won't show it to you or read the blurb, because we'll continue this tomorrow. Beautiful, talented, loving, awestruck, magical, creative, blessed people of Earth. See you anon. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the space-time continuum. And remember, as always, hold true like glue to the ones that hold you, but not too tightly, otherwise you oppress each other's spirit and creativity and individuation. Must not have oppression, and live wildly and freely and joyously every day that the gods grant you. Take good care, be of good cheer, and remember, as always, to never ever let the bastards grind you down. Bye for now.